Now, for more on this, the incoming chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Republican Congressman Michael McCaul of Texas. Thanks for coming on, Congressman. You were in the chamber last night. You're part of the escort committee. What was it like for you? What did you think of his message?
You know, I think the word historic's been used quite a bit. I was part of the official escort committee, met with him, you know, in a back room in the Capitol. He's very strong man, very inspiring. You know, what I appreciate about his speech, a couple of things. One were the parallels that he made to World War II. That would be my father's war. When I go to Poland, they talk about 1939, Hitler invading Poland. Had we stopped Hitler at that point in time, we would have saved so much blood and treasure from occurring. And what we're seeing right now is a struggle for the global balance of power in the world. And that would be Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. Particularly Chairman Xi in China, who's in the Solomon Islands, is looking at Taiwan, but also his unholy alliance with Putin in Ukraine. You cannot bifurcate these world powers, and they're all against freedom and democracy in the West. So I thought it was while I was worried that it would be politicized, I thought he gave a tremendous speech that was inspiring to not only the United States, but to the world.
Yeah. Zelensky did make clear that they're going to need more. They need more now, but they will need more in aid in the future. And Kevin McCarthy, he reacted to CNN to the speech last night. And what McCarthy said in reacting to Zelensky's speech was this, which was, I support Ukraine, but I never support a blank check. We want to make sure there's accountability for all the money that we spent, and I assume he means spend as well. Should Zelensky hear that and be concerned that Ukraine will see less support from the U.S. under the new Republican majority?
I don't think so. I think you do have people on the far left and right who are opposed to funding this effort. But, you know, my point is, with this investment, I know it sounds like a lot of money, but we've destroyed the Russian military without one American soldier being killed. I mean, now think about that. A foreign nation adversary like Russia, who would have thought Ukraine would even have the capability to do this? And the thing is, Kate, every time we give them what they need, they come through. My only criticism would be, and to your point about the blank check, we are going to have oversight and accountability. The American taxpayer deserves that. But through that, I want to make sure when we're giving them this money, it's going to the weapons they need. Because right now, they're not getting the weapons they need. I think it was difficult because Zelensky's in a position of saying, thank you for the Patriot battery system, which is one that could maybe protect Kyiv, but not the whole country. But what he's saying behind the scenes here, I need more. I need everything. I need to win this war, and you're not giving it to me. I've had a lot of discussions with the administration, and these are bipartisan, by the way. What does Ukraine need to get this thing done in the short term, not a long protracted war? And you know what it is? We slow walk the HIMARS, we slow walk the Javelin Stingers. Now it's the ATACMS, which are the longer range artillery that can hit the Iranian drones in Crimea. That's what's causing the damage and destruction against the infrastructure and the civilian population. That is what they need right now. And this administration is not willing to put that in. I don't understand that, and I've had many discussions with them. And there are other countries you have them that want to put them in, but they can't get permission from the United States.
Well, there's clearly this is not this aid package that has just been announced and approved, and there is another ask, and there will be more asks to come. You know, CNN is reporting that the White House and some in Congress are working to formally designate Russia, and what they're calling it is as an aggressor state. I read your comments in reacting to that even discussion, and you think that it doesn't go far enough because it falls short of designating Russia a state sponsor of terrorism. The thought behind this, though, is that the state sponsor of terrorism designation has too many unintended consequences, is how it's really laid out, tying the hands of the government in dealing with Russia on a number of issues. Do you see that?
Yeah, and I've been dealing with foreign terrorist designations for, you know, I tried to get the cartels designated that. IRGC in Iran, certainly they deserve that. I think it'd be tricky with Russia. Again, I think the best thing we can do is give them what they need now so they can win in the short term. We're going to go into a wintertime. They could have an offensive to take out these Iranian drones right now. I'll never forget being in the 82nd Airborne, right when this operation logistically was starting, 50 miles of Russian tanks stuck in the mud north of Kyiv, and we couldn't do a darn thing about it to take them out. And all they need was one A-10 Warthog to do that. That's a plane. Why?
So what you're saying is they don't need a designation. They don't need a designation to help them win this fight. They need artillery.
That's very, 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 very symbolic. What they need are the weapons that they really. And you read between the lines in the speech. Zelensky was being very gracious, but he had to say that. Is that I also need more, and what he meant behind the lines there, reading behind the lines, he needs these longer range artillery attackers that can take out the Iranian drones in Crimea. They're causing so much havoc, destroying infrastructure, taking down power at Christmas time, and killing innocent civilians. For the life of me, I don't know why the administration is so hesitant to do this. And it's not just me. The current chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, Adam Smith, agrees with me on this.
Yeah, he's been on the show many times talking about the need to send more over and send more over quickly. Before we go, I know that you and I have talked about Afghanistan many times. You've been there many times. I want to get your reaction to the Taliban this week announcing that it is banning and barring, suspending all women from attending universities. At this point, is there anything the United States can do about
it? We handed Afghanistan over to the Taliban. That was a policy decision made by the commander-in-chief. I disagree with that policy. And I think the way it was handled without any plan of action, the debacle, leaving Americans behind, Afghanistan partners behind, and now the women. This is the worst, is to watch the women now under Sharia law being tortured, can't go to school, can't even go out publicly without a male companion. Without being tortured. It is really awful to see what's happened. I talked to Roya Rahmani, the former ambassador from Afghanistan, and she's taking this on with a women's rights issue. But what can we do? We can't force the Taliban to change their behavior. We handed the country over to them. That was a mistake.
Well, that's a discussion we will continue to have as you move in to take over the chairmanship of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. I appreciate your time, though. Thank you, Congressman. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.